All right, on that scary note that Jenna is going to take over our lives, let's move on to the next session. When I say women leaders, what name comes into your mind? Shout out the name that comes into your mind when we say leader, women leader. No names? I can't hear you, but I think you said Madhurada Gupta. Madhura Das Gupta. Wow, okay. Anybody that commonly is pretty well known? I'm shocked that you guys are not calling her name out. Thank you, Indra Nui. Yes, so she's very well known for her transformative style of leadership, where she's transformed the way PepsiCo has been working. She's an ex CEO right now, but she still takes a lot of motivational speeches. She's on a lot of panel discussions. So, remembering Indra Nui, one of my role models, I call upon stage for an expert talk and panel discussion, um, who's who's going to be moderated by Shailaja Manicha. Where's Shailaja? Are you here? Hey, all right. She's taking the ramp walk to the stage now. Big round of applause for the moderator Shailaja. She's the leadership coach and founder at Pisces. She's going to be joined by Nitya Venugopal, Senior Technical Program Manager at Google Ads, and Poonam Singhal, Senior Computer Scientist at Adobe. Over to you, Shailaja.
The post lunch session is always dreaded. We are dreading it. So, do we have your ears? Thank you. All right. So, like the title of this session says, leadership and action. We are going to be talking about action, but this panel is also going to be giving you some pointers about who this leader needs to be. Yeah, not just not just the action, but who is this leader, and how do you need to be in order to take action. We will be also talking about some change and transformation, and once again, what holds a leader in good stead for us to manage any kind of change. It could be organization change, it could be change at the level of our teams, at the level of our business. So, how do we manage that change process better? That's going to be what this panel is about. Um, Nitya and Poonam, any opening comments before we jump in?
Yes, hi. Hello, everybody. Very good afternoon. I would like to start with two things. So, this was back when I was in class six, right? And it was a Monday morning, and the PT teacher walked into our classroom randomly, and he was there to check for uniforms and tidiness. And he found a boy whose nails were not trimmed. And it was I who got the punishment for that because I was the class monitor. So that was when I learned my first lesson on leadership of being accountable, right? And the second thing I would like to share is I'm here, although it's me that you see here, but I'm here because of the support of my family, my friends, and the mentors who have guided me on this journey. And so I'm here to, showcasing the theme, me plus we, which we are celebrating here today. Thank you, Sai.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Hope all of you are doing well. Thank you, Grace Hopper. I'm honored by this opportunity. I'm humbled to be representing Google, the organization that I'm part of. I'm Nitya Venugopal. I'm passionate about bringing ideas to life. My career has taken me around the world, leading organizations and portfolios in various countries, be it India, Australia, United States, to name a few. This diverse experience has given me a unique perspective on collaboration, problem solving, and navigating cultural differences. My definition of leadership is to identify the strengths, acknowledge the weaknesses, and together we strive to get a better version of each of us and the others. Today, we are all here today because we have a shared goal, and that is to become better leaders. However, the world around us is changing rapidly. The kind of challenges and complexities that we are facing demand more than just individual traits. We require leaders and people who understand the power of me and we, which is today's theme. And that means the individual spark that can ignite the power of a group. So today, let us all explore how we can become more action oriented leaders, regardless of the role or title that we hold. Let us delve into each other, the light within us, kindle the light within us to create a more positive environment and bring the right change in the world. Finally, I would like to state a famous quote, which is my favorite. A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader, but a great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. Over to you, Sai.
Thank you, Poonam and Nitya, for such a personal start. So let me go to the audience. How many of you think that for great action, you need to have title, authority, something written under your name? How many of you feel that that's the person who can take great action? Wow, there's only one or two hands. Okay, so that really brings us to my first question, which is Poonam for you. Do you think a leader can take effective, powerful action without any real power, yeah, or title or authority? And what abilities do they need to have in order to lead like this?
Yes, I would like to start with the a couple of examples. First, Malala. So I think we all know Malala. As a young girl, she noticed a lot of restrictions on girls' education around her. So, and instead of just being silent about this or accepting that this is the way, she voiced her opinion, and she had this vision of girls having equal educational opportunities. Despite of assassination attacks, she didn't go into a shell or just step back. She persevered in her vision, and she was able to transform her own life trajectory by graduating from the University of Oxford. And she was able to gather a lot of global awareness, mobilize a lot of worldwide initiatives for equal educational opportunities for girls, right? The second example that I would like to share is about Grace Hopper, in whose honor we are having this conference annually every year. So she was a computer programmer back in 1930s, and at that time, computer programming was not widespread, and it was a complex process. And she was not comfortable with this, and she had the vision to make computer usage widespread and make it simple. And that is when she got the idea of a compiler, right? A translator, which would basically convert human readable code into machine language. And with this vision that she had, today we are in this world where, this is the stage at which the modern software development industry has reached to. So in both of these examples, I think we have seen that they started with a vision in mind without any position of power or authority. They inspired and influenced the people around them. They were able to transform their vision into reality. So, in my opinion, leadership does not need any positional authority. I think it's a skill and a responsibility which each one of us can embrace.
Thank you, Poonam. Such lovely examples. And I'm so glad that you brought it back to Grace Hopper. Yeah, that we're sitting here honoring such a person. So thank you for that example.
Thank you, sir.
So let me just go back again to the audience. Yeah. Um, I'm wondering how many of you have seen poor power dynamics, yeah, in your organization, poor power dynamics impacting leadership. very few hands. If I was sitting there, oh, there's a hand right at the back. Yeah, she's walking, but she's putting up her hand. Thank you. Um, so, from what I have noticed in a lot of my work as a coach and working with leaders, there is tremendous power dynamics that we get to see. Yeah, sometimes between clients and leaders, sometimes between peer leaders, sometimes between leader and team. Yeah, and this can really hinder good action. So, Nitya, my question is to you. Do you have any example or something to share around power dynamics impacting effective leadership?
Sure. I'd like to answer this by first asking a few questions with which we can jog our mind, right? Um, have any of you been in a situation where you had to deliver a project or a task out of sheer pressure? Were there risks or concerns raised by team members that were silenced or overruled and that led to disastrous situation? Sure, many can resonate with it. Can you recall instances from history where there was unchecked power and a culture of fear that led to unethical behavior and even collapse of an organization? Rings a bell, right? One final question. Have any of you been in a situation, or let's say at least read of situation, where raising red flags or voices has resulted in unforeseen circumstances, why even loss of a job? Circumstances and situations becoming such that communication gets stifled, one sided, lack of engagement, no collaboration. We call this often as them versus we mentality. So, we all have read in history, or we can at least recall stories from the past, that pressure to meet target results in breaches which can significantly impact individuals, organizations, and environment. So, all what I talked about, those instances, the many instances which I just covered, only indicate how complex power dynamics are. Its impact could be subtle but far reaching. Power dynamics hinder effective leadership. How? By festering a culture where there is only fear instead of collaboration, innovation, and simpler, straightforward communication. There'll be micromanagement, bias, inequality, like a lack of trust. There could be unnecessary conflicts, risks evolving as a result of this. I can just go on. So, in a sense, what I would like to say is that power dynamics should be addressed in order to create an equitable and inclusive environment where everyone can thrive and contribute their best.
You know, what you're sharing is reminding me of how significant it is for leaders to be at the helm of creating psychological safety. How many of you are familiar with the work of Amy Edmondson? Anyone? All right, so here's a pointer for you. Amy Edmondson and her work on psychological safety, a very good read in case any of you are looking for recommendations. Thank you for that, Nitya. So, Nitya, I was just thinking that, while most leaders hold a bias for action, um, you know, action, that's one thing, yeah? Holding the intention even is one thing. What do you see as the significance of strategy, planning, or more, yeah, in order to actually bring that action to the fore?
Thank you, Sai. I'm glad you asked this question. It's one of my favorite topic. So let me address this in two parts. So first, action versus intention. Can intention by itself translate into action, driving meaningful results? The answer is no. It's amazing if a leader has vision to improve employee morale, increasing customer satisfaction, why even launch a fancy product? However, these remain as only ideas without action, right? We all have set ourselves SMART goals. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, time bound goals. Have we ever thought, why do we encourage our team to set SMART goals? So that they can have a tangible outcome as against vague intentions. Taking action also involves decision making during times of uncertainty. So, if a leader has good intention, they may hesitate to actually take decisions or risk, resulting in a situation what we call quote unquote analysis paralysis. Good intentions can inspire others, but then it will only ring hollow if you do not mobilize the team to achieve the goals. Action oriented leaders don't give up. Why? Because they have the perseverance, resilience to overcome challenges and to stay focused on goals. So I would say that having good intentions is a great thing, but it needs to be followed by actions. And in leadership, that action refers to doing, inspiring, measuring, persisting, and I can go on. So I'll answer the second question that Sai asked about plan and strategy. All what I discussed about on actions are wonderful. However, these can have a negative impact without careful consideration. I'm sure all of you have been in situations where you took a decision in haste and wondered, oh my God, I shouldn't have done this, or I probably did this in a hurry. So, jumping into action without a clear plan, strategy, stakeholder involvement, and all its components can lead to unintended negative outcomes and sometimes even damage trust and break relationships. So, in summary, actions should always be coupled with a clear vision, strategy, plan, and how you want to execute it.
Just as a follow up from what Nitya is saying, Poonam, any specific pointers that you can give all of us and in the audience for really driving this action oriented leadership that we're talking about?
Yeah, sure, Sai. I would like to extend what Nitya just mentioned about smart goals, right? Once we have moved from the vision stage to smart goals, next comes accountability for these goals. I would like to speak about accountability first because that's the first lesson I learned, right? Which I just shared. So, and accountability from people is possible when they are empowered to drive initiatives, empowered to make decisions. I would like to stress the significance of decision making, especially when it involves people. I would like to share an instance from my experience where a project manager noticed or he saw that an employee's performance has dropped over a period of time. Instead of concluding or taking any decisive actions based on this of poor performance, he decided to have an open, honest conversation with the employee. And it turned out that she was going through a significant personal challenge. So, with this background, he was now able to connect with her from a compassionate and empathetic view and drive towards the common good of the organization and the employee, right? So I would say decision making based on data in the midst of human context is something which would help us towards action driven leadership. And I would like to add one last point by stating the example of Jeff Bezos, right? During the initial days of Amazon, it is known that he would work long hours alongside his team, and he would also do the packing and shipping in the warehouse. This commitment from his side would, he was able to build the trust and from his employees, and also he was able to instill the customer centric mission which the company worked on. So I would like to summarize this as accountability, empowerment of the team, and decision making based on data and human context, and lead by example. I think those would be the pointers.
Thanks for that, Poonam. I'm just going back to your earlier example of the manager and the team member. Uh, so many times we see that managers or the team member doesn't even initiate an effective conversation, right? In order to surface issues, in order to ask the questions, we feel awkward, we find these conversations sticky, and many times they go under the carpet. Yeah, and so I think sometimes these missing conversations create a complete lack of any objectivity. And I can imagine that it can really impact action, isn't it?
Yes, totally agree, Sai. And
Yeah,
that also, with this attitude, the manager was also able to earn the trust of the team, right?
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that, Poonam. So I'm just, again, just going back to the audience for a moment. How many of you have seen or witnessed instructions, authoritative based leadership and struggled with it? Yeah, quite a few hands struggled with it. Okay. And how many of you have experienced that there are multiple generations in the workplace and nobody knows how to actually talk to each other, and the one generation is talking in hushed tones about the other generation? How many of you experienced that? Okay, so lots of hands again, thank you. So today's workforce is uh, is multi-generational. Today's workforce has also been impacted, with the big COVID experience that all of us have. So today, in the contemporary times that we are living and leading and working in, um, I'm just curious, Nitya, if you have any views of what kind of leadership style is required today. And I would love to hear any angle that you have on this.
I love the point on contemporary leadership. So let me first start by addressing the what and how of contemporary leadership. What's contemporary leadership? It's nothing but modern day leadership, the kind of leadership that we require in a world which is so complex and rapidly changing. So, in contemporary leadership, the focus is more on adaptability, collaboration, empowerment. So, you can clearly see that we are retiring from the age old traditional top down hierarchical model, and the focus is more on contemporary styles. So, there's also another concept of authentic leadership that comes into picture, where the focus is on what has to be happened and the kind of impact that it creates should be future proof, not just short wins that are happening. So that takes me back to an example from the past. This was a scenario where we had encountered a critical defect in one of the product launches that had gone out, and out of customer interest we had to roll back this product launch. Sure, like many of you have experienced this common scenario. So we as leaders address this in the contemporary style. So what did we do? Number one, we communicated immediately to all the stakeholders in clear, concise message stating what the problem is, what is the criticality, why the product rollout. You see, the emphasis here is swift action. Second, we as a team openly acknowledged and admitted that this is a mistake, right? Which most of the times may not happen. So the focus here is transparency and accountability. Okay, then you may wonder what happened to the customers who were already impacted. The least we could do was express a genuine concern of inconvenience caused. And then we said that we are going to roll back the product and get back to them with clear steps. This is what we plan to do. This is how we'll keep you updated, whatever the situation was. So you see, the focus here is on customers, customer interest. Lastly, and most importantly, our team did a thorough investigation to find out the root cause of this issue. Why this even occurred at the first place through what is known as RCA, the root cause analysis. So you see, all the steps that I just talked about, the only focus has been to restore and regain that trust which we have lost. And that is the key of continuous improvement, right? Hypothetically, if we had done this in the traditional style, I'm just like thinking loud, probably we could have led to damaged trust in customer, and most importantly, that root cause analysis, that learning opportunity, that we had to find out where we went wrong and not to repeat it. So, to summarize, traditional leadership could be effective in some situations, but it may not work all the time, especially in this kind of complex, critical scenarios like this product recall that I talked about. Because in contemporary leadership, we are focusing on accountability, collaboration, communication, which will help us overcome challenges and thrive stronger.
Thank you for that. I think everything that you've said is alluding to authentic leadership. Yeah, it's at the core of it. And even if we look at leaders whom we appreciate today, even if we look at everything that we read on LinkedIn, you'll notice that you're always moved by people who make a very honest share. Yeah, they're not, they're not covering up, or they're not making a big attempt to show up in a particular way. And I find most of us feel quite moved with those kind of sharings. I have often found myself responding to that. So I think even the simplest of situations of putting our voice out, I think authentic leadership
Absolutely.
helps. In the kind of problem that you talked about, also it helps. So I think what we're alluding to here is that contemporary leadership, includes all of these qualities that you have,
Totally.
you've talked about. Um, Poonam, I just want to ask you, I just want to come to the second part of what we are talking about, which is change and managing change. At team levels, there are so many changes that we want to do, even as managers. But even as leaders at org level, there are sometimes really big changes that we are driving. So I'm really curious to know what approaches you think really help. What have you seen in your experience in the different organizations you've been in, which have really helped to drive change in a meaningful way?
Yes, I. So to answer this, I would like to start with why are we even talking about change,
Yeah.
right? We all feel very settled and stable in our routines and habits, right? And when we, at least for me, if I have to change my place of sleep from one room to another within the same house, I feel uncomfortable, right? So people are averse to change because there is a fear of unknown, because there is a fear of losing control, because there is a fear of losing familiarity. And to add to this, the thought of adapting to the new system is overwhelming, right? And that is the reason why we need to think and talk about how we can bring about a change, right? So, to talk about this, I would like to share the story of penguins from a change management fable called Our Iceberg is Melting, right? So, this is a story of penguins. I am particularly captivated by penguins because my early visual of penguins was their playful behavior, which we would see in the Kelvinator ads that used to come decades ago, right? And I personally find their walk very cute too. So the story is about penguins which lived on the entire colony lived on an iceberg in Antarctica, and they were personally very deeply attached to their place of living because they have been living there for generations. So when one of the penguins discovered that their iceberg was melting, and he when the told this to the other penguins, they were not ready to accept this, and just denied that anything like this could happen. So he had to then gather evidence and demonstrate that their iceberg was indeed melting, and they had to look for a new place to live. So with these actions of his, he was able to convince a few close allies, and these few close allies together then made a decision that we indeed need to look for a new place. And then they started this project of going and exploring out. So to do that, they first broke down this entire thing into smaller tasks, where four of them would go in four different directions, and there would be one person who is collecting all the data from everywhere and then analyzing, giving his reviews. And then they even assign different roles. Somebody would be a motivator who would go around telling the other penguins about this change that is coming up, keep them pepped up. And then there would be a communicator whose main role was to communicate what is the progress, if they have really zeroed in on the new place, and so on and so forth. So finally the penguins were able to find a new place of living, and they were able to migrate to that place, to the new iceberg, and they were able to live there comfortably. So with this story, I would like to say there are four main steps in an approach to meaningful change. The first is to establish and communicate the need for a change so that you're able to gain the trust of all the stakeholders involved. Second would be to get together diverse leadership who can drive the change, diverse and capable leadership who can drive the change. Third would be keep all the people involved, keep them updated on what is the progress during the change. And fourth would be to institutionalize the change once it is done. That's it.
Okay, I think we are sort of being given a time signal. So I'm just aware of that. And I still have I still have two small questions, but I'm going to ask you to just be brief about it. When you think of impactful transformation, yeah, what do you think it actually entails? Who does a leader need to be, uh, you know, um, for transformation to happen?
Yeah, for leaders, in order to create a lasting and impactful transformation, they first need to think beyond the status quo, which means they need to first have a clear vision, have the right people on board, right? Coach and mentor them to embrace change and be more adaptable. Again, it comes back to the topic of authentic leadership. Successes should be celebrated as we instead of me, right? I'll quote a quick example from my past. This was the time when I joined a large tech savvy organization, and this organization was known for its rigid power structure, and they wanted a process revamp. My vision for this group, was to make this organization or that particular group more amenable to change, more adaptable to change. So I thought there was a need to do something. So how did I achieve this? Number one, flattening the hierarchy, right? Creating more small, self-empowered teams. Second, advocating agile adoption. I made some practices mandatory. It sounded rigid in the beginning, but people eventually embraced when they started seeing the fruits. Third, improving the kind of communication and transparency that employees have with leaders, which is lacking, I feel, in many areas. Fourth, you need to lead by example. And lastly, and most importantly, you need to have that continuous feedback and motivation given to employees so that they feel that they are in a safe space where they can learn from failures. So, in order to be a transformative leader or an effective leader, I would say one needs to embody the change, not just advocate it, implement it, empower the people so that you create a lasting, impactful transformation in the organization.
Thanks, Nitya. Puram, any quick story or example of a bold transformation that you witnessed?
Yes, I would like to share quote an instance of when we were working on a project on a legacy application, right? And there were customer complaints about slowness in case of increased workloads. So the architect here, instead of just wanting to address the slowness, took a leap, and with the vision that we should have a solution which was easier to maintain, which was able to fault isolate the faults easily, and give us many more um, advantages of a modern architecture. Proposed to migrate from the monolith architecture to a microservices based architecture. But this was a big change, and there was a lot of resistance that came in from the cross functional teams because this would mean new deployment cycles. It would mean potential instabilities because of the entire code base being rewritten. And there could also be workflows which could get broken. But in spite of all this, the leader persevered, and she was able to finally get this project through by starting small, breaking out only the non-essential components from the system, and finally get the buy-in from the higher management to get the entire thing executed. So once the project was delivered and deployed at the customer end, the customers were delighted with the new modern look and feel, with the increased efficiencies and the ability to scale. So I think this journey, where with the vision of the leader, they were able to transform the product and the customer experience. This is something I would like to share, and I would like to end this with a quote. The best way to predict the future is to create one.
Thank you. Thank you, Poonam. Again, I'm just going to turn it back to audience. If there are any questions that you want to ask Nitya or Poonam, happy to do it now before we close. Yeah, there's someone here in the front. Can a mic be handed to this person? If you can come to the front, ma'am.
Hi. In the starting, we talked about power dynamics. So when we are entering a leadership and we detect that power dynamics is going on in the organization or something, how do we deal with it? Any tips?
Do you mind being louder, please? I couldn't
So
hear you.
if we are when we are entering into leadership and if we detect a power dynamics is going on in within the leadership, and you are going to be part of it, then how do you deal with it?
It depends on which level of power that you are in. That's the first thing. Identifying who your stakeholders are, which position are we, and what level of control do each of us have. So when you identify those immediate, the circle of influence that we have, that will sort of give us an idea where can I start. It'll just be like, a starting point to the direction that you want to do. Then secondly, as I mentioned, one needs to have what you want to achieve. Like for example, the one that I quoted, I won't say that I was in the sea level power, the example I quoted, but rather I had this ability to think about who can I reach out to bring that kind of change, right? So I had that vision and idea. So clarity is what is most lacking in most places, I would say. So talk to the level of people and say, here's what I would like to advocate. Here's the problem. Always go backed by data and solutions. One thing I have noticed is that leaders love when people approach them with solutions rather than just with problems. So I'm sure if your solution is something that is interesting and something that's going to, like I mentioned, impact long term and not just short term wins, I'm sure the leaders will consider and you'll be able to leverage that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Sai, my question is to you.
Okay.
I know that you've been in the leadership coaching for a very, very long time. What, in your opinion, are top three challenges or tenets that you've seen or experienced leaders coming and talking to you? And I want to ask you, are they real and vulnerable, or do they still have a coating while they're talking to you? Thank you.
Okay. So the first sessions is usually not real. There is a facade and very much in performance mode. That is why, as coaches, we give them a long runway to work with us. And then the layers peel off. And that is also a little bit dependent on how the coach establishes psychological safety for the leader to just be themselves. And if you ask me some of the top challenges that I see today, I think one challenge is relational intelligence. Yeah, not knowing how to manage a multiplicity of challenging stakeholder relationships. Yeah, because some of our old patterns kick in,
Yes.
or some of us are terrific with our teams, but we don't know how to manage competitive peers. If we are going to get into an executive board, then we don't know how to manage the senior stakeholders well enough. Yeah, so I think overall stakeholder management and relational intelligence, that's what I call it. Yeah, the second thing that I find has these days often presented is actually just wellness.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
wellness and resilience, especially now after our experience in COVID. I think leaders taken a very big toll on leaders because they couldn't show up as weak or vulnerable for their teams. They couldn't. So where do they take all that? Yeah, they have swallowed it. So I think wellness and resilience, is definitely a lot that I tend to encounter. And I think the third, because I work with senior leaders, I also encounter a sort of tiredness with what they're doing. Yeah, and they'd like to look elsewhere at something else, especially leaders who've been overly focused on work. Their life doesn't have too many other richness in it. So I find some of our coaching sessions allows them to go back to the essence of who they are so that they can add those pieces into their life while continuing to walk this path. So I think these are a couple of the very transformative kind of issues that come up to me. I hope I've answered you.
Thank you, Sai. And these words, I think I could resonate with a couple of them, but these are brutally honest and coming from you since you've dealt with them so much close and in person makes a lot of difference. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for these questions. So thank you very much, both of you. In the interest of time, I think we're just going to, close out this panel. So I'm very grateful for your personal examples and some very clear pointers that you offered all of us. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sai. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you to the wonderful panel. I mean, you guys being leaders out there, I know there are a lot of insights that they might have got. Every time you guys were speaking about something, it was like you guys were poking my heart because there were guilt that was striking really loud. So, as a token of our appreciation, we would like to call upon Zainab. Once again, please, you get to be on stage twice today. Can you please hand over mentors to our speakers, please?
Varnika, come. She's worked alongside with me, guys, so I wanted to.
About to break that chain of thought that people saying you can't do that. Tide us down, now we combat. New gen in your face, we about that. Me plus we see the future, gonna get that, get that. 10 toes